I love going on field trips and making videos for you. But the final trip video that you see is just a small portion of what I do and capture in still photos and video. There's a ton of planning and logistics that go into each trip. So in this video, I'll go through what I do and how I do it, from planning to what I bring, and even how I pack the car. First, planning. Deciding where to go is usually pretty easy. Something will catch my eye, like a national park or a museum. I might be talking to someone on social media, anywhere, and something will get in my head, and I'll build a trip from there. I go to urban areas and to the great outdoors, but I approach them in much the same way. I use the wonder of the internet to find out all about the place, like what there is to do, options for where to stay, and the weather. When I'm wandering around online, I look into those things that caught my eye, but I keep my options open. National parks, large hotel chains, tourist attractions, they're all good places to start, but I branch out from there. Like when I went to Zion National Park, a ghost town caught my eye when I was researching the area, so I worked it into my trip, and I was even able to do a photo shoot there. I'm almost never afraid to leave free time in my plan, too. In fact, I always leave time in my plan. I know that in most places I'll go, I'm not going to be able to see absolutely everything. So I choose a few things to do, and then I leave some extra time for spending extra time at a museum, or for walking around, or for that place that a local is going to tell me that I have to go to once I arrive. One other thing I keep an open mind about is the time of year that I'm visiting a place. If I know that most people will go to, say, the Grand Canyon during the summer, I'll consider what winter offers. With the Grand Canyon, my very favorite trips there have been when everything is blanketed in snow and I feel like I'm the only one there. Same thing with Zion National Park. It was chilly when I went there last February, but the park was so much less busy than it would have been in the summer months, and I got a great deal on the cabin that I stayed in. I wouldn't have been able to afford it during the busy season, and it was definitely one of my favorite things about the place. Speaking of winter and snow, in my research, I always look at the weather, but I plan for anything, especially if I'm going to be outside, because you never know what's going to roll in. It's easy to throw in an umbrella or a poncho in with my stuff. I always pack large Ziploc bags too for my camera gear if it starts raining. And for clothes, I like to pack things that are easy to layer. Okay, so I use the power of the internet to plan where I'm going. And then it's time to plan what I'll need for traveling and for when I get there. I make a list. Usually more than one, actually. I love lists. I make lists of the personal items that I'll need, like clothes. This is driven by where I'm going and what I'll be doing and the weather. Will I have the opportunity to wash my clothes when I'm there? Am I camping, and will there be access to coin-operated showers? If so, I better bring a bunch of quarters. Do I need to bring food? Usually I do. I'm at least bringing snacks, so I make a list for that too. I'm pretty particular about my diet, so I do a fair amount of research on what will be available to me. If I'm headed to a big city, it's pretty easy to find grocery stores and restaurants online ahead of time. But if I'm going to a national park, it's a little more difficult to determine what will be open and available, especially during the off seasons. The national park websites are great, but they aren't always super specific about food offerings, so I always err on the side of bringing extra stuff. I pack an ice chest and bags with food, and I bring plastic utensil sets and trash bags and paper towels, and baby wipes are handy if I'm camping. And I also list out the gear I want to bring. The photography gear and the computer stuff, it's going to vary greatly depending upon my trip. However, I always try to pack light in this department. I think about what I'm going to be doing and what gear I really think I'm actually going to use. And I don't overthink things like lens choices. Rather, I bring extra camera batteries and a way to back up my photos at the end of the day. That's what I spend my time thinking about. Have there been times when I've said to myself, gosh, it would have been nice if I'd had that lens that I decided not to bring? Sure, but it's rare. Usually, I simply use what I have and I enjoy myself. I've never come back from a trip and said, well, gosh, that trip would have been great, but it really would have been incredible if I'd only had that other lens so that I could take that one picture. Yep, too bad, trip ruined. I've never once said that. I far more often thought, well, hell, I'd really like to take that photo of that chipmunk over there, but I'm really glad that I can't take it because that would mean that I'd have the 70 to 200 in my backpack and I'm already tired and my backpack is heavy enough as it is. So usually I'm like, hey, chipmunk, it was nice to see you, but I'm gonna let somebody else take your picture. As snap check, I also have to think about how I'm going to get work done while I'm out and about. Posting things on Facebook, videos, how I'm capturing my trip for the field trip video that I'll ultimately be making. So my list is always going to include a computer, usually some sort of microphone, and sometimes additional camera equipment for shooting video, like maybe a tripod. Now I've got my lists of things that I need and I'm ready to pack. What do I pack in? If I'm traveling by plane, I have a rolling suitcase, but I also have a few camera bags as carry-ons. I almost always carry my Timbuktu Snoop bag because it fits my laptop along with cameras. But I also have a couple camera bags to choose from for the additional camera gear if I need it. I have an Amazon Basics backpack and a Low Pro sling pack. If I'm traveling by car, which is the case for most of my field trips, I use my camera bags just like I would if I was traveling by plane, but I also use these big plastic bins. Everything goes into these bins. Clothes, food, everything. That way, it's all kind of organized so that I can get to everything easily. Like, if I see something interesting on the side of the road, I don't want to pull over and then be rummaging around in the back of my car trying to find my camera, which might be buried under a food bag or something. I want it easily accessible, so I keep everything organized. One last thing that is invaluable while I'm on my trips is my phone. I keep information on where I'm going in there. I shoot video with it. I keep in touch with my viewers. I download maps ahead of time, especially if I'm going out into the great beyond. I particularly like an app called Motion X GPS because I can download maps before I head out on a hike. My GPS will capture where I am on those maps, even if I'm out of range. That app has saved my butt more than once. Now you may have noticed that I didn't talk too specifically about cameras in this video. And you know what, I almost didn't bring it up at all because for me, my field trips are an experience. They're so much more than taking photos. I love capturing what I'm seeing and I love even more to share it with all of you, but it's definitely secondary to capturing what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling with my own five senses. Here's one more thing about my trips. I'm never afraid to ditch the plan. If I'm going to spend extra time in a place, I do. I just cut something else out later. I mentioned that I always leave a bit of extra time in my plan anyway, but even that is subject to change if I hear about something cool from a local once I get there. Where will I go on my next field trip? I don't know. I think I'm due though. Where do you want to go? Let me know in the comments. And you can see many of my field trips and my hikes in the playlist above.